progress, change, boredom. What wisdom of experience do you have to share? What habits help you to maintain your vitality? These are all pressures, questions, and qualities that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for June 1st to 7th, 2026 bring. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margo Fraser. Well, we are in the frequencies of change, so I'm trying out some changes in the weather report, and I invite you to provide any feedback you might have. Do you like this format better? Do you prefer the old? Any suggestions are welcome. Just put them into the comments. I'll start with the Sun Earth as usual, but then we'll look at the nodes that provide the homogenized context. We'll look at any short to long-term channels and then the definition attached to them and their pressures, as that's going to have the biggest impact on the not-self world. Then I'll go through the longer-term planets in undefined centers, and finally I'm going to put the moon transits at the end because they don't have a big impact on the transit conditioning field as a whole and the collective, but they could have a big personal impact on you. All right, let's get into it. We're staying in the collective frequencies this cycle, which are inherently social and always have an underlying theme of impersonal sharing, even though we humans tend to take this sharing personally. This cycle begins June 1st at 2:58 p.m., going until the 7th at 11:58 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, it's coming in June 1st at 8:58 p.m., going until the 7th at 5:58 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. The Sun-Earth activations comprise 70% of the conditioning field, so let's get into those. The Sun has moved into Gate 35, the trait of change and progress in the throat center. This is part of the abstract experiential circuitry that's all about going through cycles of experience, beginnings, middles, and ends, then reflecting on them and sharing the lessons and wisdom so that we all don't have to start from scratch every time. Specifically, this is part of the stream of going through a new feeling experience. Its keynote says, by design, progress cannot exist in a vacuum and is dependent on interaction. This just highlights the ultimate goal of the experiential circuitry. True progress for humanity as a collective can't happen if the lessons and wisdom of experience aren't shared with others. Without that, we're spinning our wheels and again have to start from scratch every time. There's only so much you can do on your own. And in your own experiences, if you don't learn from your past, progress isn't going to happen. Since this gate points to a motor, the solar plexus in this case, it's a gate of action. There's manifestation of the experience here. Every throat gate has its voice, and here it's the voice of I feel or I felt. And very often it's I feel like a change. Gate 35 is where the completion of an experience occurs, and one of the rules of thumb of the experiential circuitry is never repeat an experience. With this trait presence, you may feel or hear this been there, done that quality. It's where you feel or hear I'm bored when there's no new desired experience on the horizon. It's going to bring the pressure to satisfy any yearning you have for an experience. It's not about expectations and having a goal here. It's really about the process of going through the cycle, going through the journey and learning from it. There'll be pressure and potentially an opportunity here to share your experience and what you learned and what the change brought. However, if you did or do have expectations around an experience that you're in, you might feel a sense of dissatisfaction or disappointment that a yearning wasn't fulfilled in the way that you expected. Because we have the 1762 channel of acceptance activating the throat center, for everyone that doesn't already have it defined in their chart, it means that you're going to experience the pressures of this gate 35. This is a really interesting Sun-Earth combination because as much as gate 35 is about never repeating an experience. Its opposition, the Earth's position, is in gate 5, the logical trait of fixed rhythms and waiting in the sacral center. As part of logic circuitry, that means it's all about repeating, experimenting, practicing to find the best pattern or formula to carry yourself and humanity forward. Logic always wants to get to that place where you know if you do A, B, and C, you're going to get a very specific outcome consistently and reliably. Its keynote says the fundamental attunement natural rhythms. Waiting as an active state of awakening. For this trait, habits are empowering. They provide a sense of stability for oneself and for others. The waiting the keynote's referring to is waiting for the right timing in terms of your own rhythm. This trait's going to bring the pressure to use your vital energy to find and stick to your fixed habits no matter what. If you have gate 5 in your own design and something's going to interfere with your fixed habit, you don't engage with it. You stick with your own rhythm, your own habits, no matter what. Otherwise, it can pull you into something that's very destabilizing. In a macro sense, this trait contributes to holding all of life together in a universal rhythm. If you don't have this trait in your design, you might find that you're more attuned to your natural rhythm with this present and recognize habits that might be of value to you. Or you may be more likely to be conditioned towards habits based on what your mind believes you should follow, rather than using your strategy and authority. It could be a good time for contemplation of what habits are really of value to you and which are not. Now, we do have gate 5 in a channel from the start of this cycle until the afternoon of the 3rd. So the channel theme will dominate within that period, and we'll talk about that in the channel section. When we look at the sun earth traits together, you may find that there's fixed habits within an experience that help to move you through it, and a better ability to wait for the right timing for the next step in an experience. And that's going to enhance your ability to move through it. You might also be more attuned to the correct rhythm and timing in sharing your progress with others. On the other hand, if you try to force yourself to follow habits that aren't correct for you, you could end up meeting all types of resistances in moving through an experience and in trying to share it with others. All right, moving to the nodes now in the transit field, they bring the homogenized perspective and direction that we'll see play out in the world. This is the context that the transit field is bringing, that the sun, earth, and other planets express themselves within. Now, we can't separate ourselves from our environment, so the qualities of these traits can play out through us as well. We have the North Node sitting in gate 55, the individual trait of abundance and spirit in the emotional center. It brings a general context that's about the individual spirit. It brings a moody, glass half full, glass half empty, loves me not perspective, as well as passion and romance or their polarities. Gate 55 has the highest highs and the lowest lows of all gates. So we're likely to see more emotional volatility in the world while this is present. The South Node sitting in gate 59, the tribal trait of sexuality in the sacral center. It's part of the channel of mating, and it's going to bring a general context where one-on-one relationships are highlighted, whether intimate friendships or business partnerships. It could also bring an environment where literal fertility issues are more present and where there could be creative fertility or not. The nodes start the cycle in line 4, which will generally bring a social environment emphasizing networks and opportunities within them. Fourth lines also have a quality of being fixed and single track. For gate 55, line 4 is called assimilation. This is an environment where we'll see who maintains their own principles in determining who fills their cup and who doesn't. Who fills your cup when you maintain your individual principles? This is a trait where people can try to fix themselves to the high end of the wave, which just doesn't work. They just always want to be up. It doesn't work that way. It's important to understand that not everyone can bring your mood up all the time. You have to allow for the sadness in the wave for yourself and for others. Don't place that expectation on someone else that they can always bring you up. We'll see and may experience the kindness and meanness in the field, as this is the inherent emotional wave of fourth lines. In the not self world, we'll likely see those without awareness abandoning their own principles to align with those who they think are going to bring them prosperity. And when it doesn't work out, they end up crashing down emotionally into that negative end of volatility. For gate 59, line 4 is called brotherhood, sisterhood. This is an environment that brings a pressure to be friends first before entering into a more intimate one-on-one relationship. So it brings an environment that can be friendly. However, if one feels they've been wronged or violated, that meanness can come out, and it tends to come out here through the exposing of secrets and information that was shared in confidence in retaliation for being wronged. So we may see more exposing of this type of information in the world around us. On June 5th at 7:52 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, that's June 6th at 1:52 a.m. UTC, the nodes will move into line 3. Line 3 has a general theme of trial and error, bonds made and broken, adaptation, and a more material perspective. So that just gives generally what's going to be there in the background. Now, specifically for gate 55, line 3 is called innocence. It has a developmental theme that says, here, I was only following orders, is a genuine defense. This is where you'll see that even when people follow their moods, that trial and error process can still have them fail. If they or you, if it's affecting you, can learn and move on, nothing will be lost in that. It's really innocent here. This is part of the process. In the polarity, we could also see people taking individual initiative when they're up in their mood. If they bring that up spirit and initiative to a superior, who in turn gets amped up and excited, that superior could make commitments out of that rather than checking in with their strategy and authority. As a result, that superior might end up being punished if the commitment is unfulfilled when one goes down in mood, while there's no repercussions for the one that had the individual initiative. For those with this third line in their designs, if they're not following their moods and don't break the bond when they should, it could result in emotional difficulties. For gate 59, line 3 is called openness. So this is going to bring an environment where people are just more open to coming in to a bond, into a one-on-one partnership with another. This is where we really see people can dissolve into a relationship, defining themselves in that union and being empowered through that. This is a third line where there are bonds made and broken. So we'll see people getting together and ending relationships, or at least a pressure, even in a long-term relationship, not to be joined at the hip 24/7. So this is an environment of being very open to another for a one-on-one relationship. Now, something to watch for here is that if you're in a long-term relationship with someone that you are around pretty much 24/7, and that's working well for you, when this frequency comes in, there is the potential that you may find being that constant togetherness being very irritating and could end up picking fights to create distance. It's just the transit field. We could also see more promiscuity here and a gaining of self-empowerment through that. That's part of this frequency as well. Gate 59 is the voice of the reproductive genes and brings the pressure to reproduce. With the third line, the genes are looking for genetic material that's very different. So we may see very different people coming together in partnerships. It doesn't mean that the wholeness of each person is a fit for each other. The third line could be very fertile or infertile. I wouldn't be surprised to see an increase in unwanted pregnancies while this third line is present, something else that can go along with it. Out of this, we may see issues of sexual freedoms and rights and fertility also being highlighted. Okay, so that sets our context and what we're likely to see around us. Let's move now into our short to long-term channels. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact that way. We have our medium-term channel that will be present for the full cycle and beyond. It came in May 23rd, and it's going to be with us until June 12th. Neptune's in gate 17, the trait of opinions in the Ajna center, our mental awareness center. It's correlated biologically to the right eye that takes in patterns in the now. Gate 17 brings the pressure to conceptualize your theories and opinions from the various patterns you've taken in to determine what might be best to carry you and humanity into the future. It's sitting in line 1 called openness. It brings the possibility to be open to many patterns and having opinions in many areas. Or, like an art critic, only having opinions when it comes to a certain area of interest that you enjoy, but no opinion in any other area. The thing about Neptune is that it's veiling, and so it's going to make it a little tougher to grasp the patterns that are there. So it's going to slow down the process likely in that way. Gate 17 is connecting with its electromagnetic, gate 62, the trait of detail in the throat center. It brings all the facts and details together to express to others so that they can understand. It's being activated by Jupiter, which brings its expansiveness to details. It's the voice of I think or I don't think. It starts the cycle in line 4 called asceticism, where there's going to be this pressure to withdraw so that you can get all the details sorted and organized for expression when the right opportunity arises so that you can explain what you think in a way that others will understand, backed up by the facts and details. However, it can also bring out this expressing details and facts to try and impress the others rather than so others can really understand. That could bring out this kind of condescending quality to it. On June 3rd at 12:36 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 6:36 a.m. UTC, Jupiter's going to move into line 5 called Metamorphosis. It has a developmental theme that says when excellence is achieved, action is necessary. Now, fifth lines are always projected on that they can provide whatever the trait is. So this frequency is going to bring a tendency for all of us to be projecting on each other that, hey, I know you have all the details, so tell me what they are. It doesn't mean that it's actually true. Having a developmental theme means it takes time to learn how to organize all the details and facts for expression in a way that others can understand them so that they can be universalized. That's one of those fifth line themes. Because of this projection, the transit field is creating, you're really going to need to manage expectations around any details you're organizing or not. If expectations aren't managed, you're likely to be blamed and called out for not being able to provide the facts and details that the others expected. Even if you had never really agreed to it. You've just got to manage the expectations. Jupiter's expansive quality can help you see details you might otherwise have missed, or it could really have you and others chasing a level of detail that's unnecessary. Putting these two traits together, they create the logical channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being. It's going to bring the mental pressure to share opinions and theories backed up by the facts or not, and plan and organize people and things. So it's a busy mind, busy with planning and organizing, and that's going to be amplified if you usually have an undefined Ajna center. There can also be anxiety here that your opinions are going to be challenged, so that could come up as well. The pressure could have people blurting out theories and opinions without being invited to do so, and if they haven't gone through the full process, they could be called out for it. As well, people might be overwhelmed by all the detail that they're hearing from others and irritated because they didn't ask for the opinion. And so they just tune out. You could be on either side of that, the one blurting things out or the one having to listen to it all. If you've got things to organize, though, these frequencies are going to be quite helpful if it's correct for you. Watch that the mental activity doesn't have you so up in your head that it pulls you away from your own strategy and decision-making process. We also have a short-term channel. It's coming in on June 1st at 2:58 p.m., going until the 3rd at 2:39 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 1st at 8:58 p.m., going until the 3rd at 8:39 p.m. Our first position is activating gate 5, as we talked about, the trait of fixed rhythms in the sacral center. It's connecting with Mercury's position, gate 15, the trait of extremes and love of humanity in the G center. That's the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. Together, they create the channel of rhythm, a design of being in the flow. This is a very magnetic channel and empowers the love of humanity, or could empower the hate of humanity. It's a universal channel, as gates 5 and 15 are part of the design of all life forms, right down to the design of a cell. Together, these traits bring rhythm and pattern together in the flow of life. It's going to bring the pressure to be in your flow. And therefore, it can bring this my way or the highway quality that you may find yourself expressing or experience from others. You could find you're more attuned to the flow of life in nature and others around you, as well as in yourself. With Mercury activating gate 15, you may find yourself or others talking about being in a flow or not. It's also where your vital energy can empower, as I mentioned, the love or hate of humanity in all its diversity. So you could hear more pro-diversity or anti-diversity messaging out there as well. Okay, let's look at the definition now. The consistent themes present in the cycle are going to be through the short to long-term channels and the gate activations in the related centers. I'll leave out the moon and any of the interplanet transits unless they're in a channel or present for most of the cycle. The definition is what everyone in the world is going to be directly conditioned by through the transit field. So it'll really run those who are not aware. However, with your awareness, you'll have the potential to learn from these frequencies when correct for you. Well, let's start with the definition around the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being that's activating the ajna and throat centers. In the throat center, we also have our sun's position, gate 35, that trait of progress and change we've already discussed. We also have Uranus sitting in gate 20 through the full cycle as well. Gate 20 is the trait of the now and contemplation. It's individual and it's the most existential gate in the body graph. It's the voice of I am now. It's sitting in line 3 called self-awareness, with a developmental theme that says understanding derived from analysis of personal actions and effects. This brings the potential to be aware of yourself in the now, witnessing yourself and how you are in the world. There's a real self-consciousness here. As you bump into others through the third line, bonds made and broken and trial and error process, being self-conscious through it can bring a lot of wisdom about yourself and the world and what you see within it. However, if you can't accept what you see, there can really be this extreme self-consciousness to the point that you're unable to function in the world. And in the bonds made process, if you're rejected in the interaction, there could be more taking on of what's wrong with me, rather than simply observing that some people accept you and your individuality and some people don't. Uranus could bring some revolutionary self-discovery here, or it could sidetrack you, particularly where you're unable to come to terms with and accept what you see, or where you take action on what you become aware of that's not out of your strategy and authority. In the Ajna Center, we have Mars activating gate 24, the individual trait of rationalizing until June 5th. at 11:21 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. That's 5:21 p.m. UTC. It'll move through lines 3 to 6 in that period, but I'm not going to get into all those line details. This is part of the individual mental knowing circuitry that's going to go over and over and over a knowing, first to determine if it's something that you already know or not, because it wants it to be mutative. And then, ooh, yes, if it's something new, then the mind's going to go over and over and over it again to determine how to rationalize it. Some pretty interesting or wacky philosophical discussions can come out of this. Putting the themes of this definition together, the conditioning pressure will be for the mind to be busy rationalizing and organizing, and the throat to be busy sharing. The potential opportunities this definition can bring, if correct for you, is being able to mentally rationalize a mutative knowing that's come through and taking what you recognize through self-awareness and then integrating those into how to organize people and things in a way that's going to allow progress. And recognizing that patience, and until June 3rd, withdrawing to really get the facts and details in place, or from the 3rd onward, managing expectations of others around you, is what will facilitate this process. What we're more likely to see in the not self world is esoteric information and what might be considered weird, presented as facts that can't be substantiated, being blurted out to try and impress others with one's understanding, but leaving those listening confused or bored. There could also be an extreme level of self-consciousness that hampers planning and organization. Out of all of that, there's likely to be anger and frustration expressed at lack of progress and unmet expectations. Okay, looking now at the definition created by the 515 channel of rhythm, that design of being in the flow, that's going to be present until June 3rd again at 2:39 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 8:59 p.m. UTC. It's activating the G and the sacral centers and bringing pressure to use your vital energy to be in the flow. Now, we also have that gate 59, the trait of sexuality, in the sacral center in line 4 during that time period within this definition. So the conditioning pressure is going to be that you need to be in your flow and then can bond with another by being friends first. We may see people putting off meeting others if they don't feel like they're in their flow. In the not self world, we may see secrets and confidential information exposed from those that feel they were wronged or violated in a relationship, pulling the other out of a flow and into chaos. Okay, let's take a look at the gates and the undefined centers. Whether and how they impact you will depend on your own definition and whether you have the center related to it defined or an electromagnetic of a transit gate that activates that center. You may also experience these traits through other people that define those centers for you. We've gone through the nodes already, so let's move on to Saturn and gate 21, the trait of the hunter, huntress, and control in the ego center. It moved into line 4 called strategy at the end of the last cycle. It has a developmental theme that says careful appraisal of opposing forces to establish a proper response. With time and learning, this trait brings an instinct for the strategy that's needed to get to manifestation, that manifestation that's in gate 45 at the other end of the channel. There's a possibility to hone an instinct for what kind of control to exert, who to control, and when to control as part of that strategy. However, strategies don't always work out. In the single track of the 4th line, if there's this trying to prove oneself, right, the ego getting involved, rather than using that instinct, there can be misjudging of the level of opposition and interference of others. Saturn's serious energy and discipline aligns very well with the strategic nature of this trait, but for those of you with an undefined ego who get it defined because you have gate 45 or through another person, Saturn could really amp up the over-controlling nature and the consequences of misjudging the opposition. Pluto sitting in gate 41, the collective abstract trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. This is the fuel and pressure to start a new experience, and it begins with fantasizing about all the experiences you'd like to have. Pluto's homogenizing pressure is that you'll find your truth through starting a new experience. It's sitting in line 4 called correction, that has a developmental theme that says successful adaptation to limitation. Now, it's just a fuel here, but the fourth line inherently senses the potential to fulfill the feeling, the experience, is in getting that fuel to gate 30. It's electromagnetic, the trait of recognition of feelings in the emotional center. The conditioning it's bringing, if your root is activated, is to use your drive to start a new experience, and it's going to bring the fuel to adapt along the way to actually get that experience. However, out of the social pressure of this drive, you might invite others into the experience, but then there's going to have to be compromises, right? And this energy could then get used for maintaining the relationships rather than on correction, which could lead to meeting more obstacles and frustration along the way. All right, let's go to our moon transit channels now and our one short-term transit that's coming in near the end of the cycle. Again, not going to have a big impact on the collective conditioning field, but could impact you personally. So I'm just going to go through these briefly. The first one comes in on June 1st at 3:47 p.m., going until the second at 3:10 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 1st at 9:37 p.m., going until the second at 9:10 a.m. We've got the moon moving into gate 10, the trait of the behavior of the self, of self-love and self-hate in the G center. It's going to be connecting with Uranus position, gate 20, that trait of contemplation and the now in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of awakening, a design of commitment to higher principles. This is part of integration, which supports our survival as individuals and can be self-empowering. This is a channel where self-love and acceptance of self, or self-hate and non-acceptance of yourself, is expressed through your behavior in the now. Next up, we have on June 1st, coming in at 1:13 p.m., going until the 4th at 12:30 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in June 3rd at 7:13 p.m., going until the 4th at 6:30 a.m. The moon's moving into gate 61, the individual trait of mystery in the head center, with its pressure to know. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 24, the trait of rationalizing in the Ajna center. We've talked about that one. Together, they create the channel of awareness, a design of a thinker. So a pulse of knowing could come through here that the mind needs to go over and over again to try and rationalize. It can bring a very busy mind that could bring something mutative out and inspire philosophical conversations. But also it's a mind that craves silence. All right, next, coming in June 6th at 8:06 a.m., going until 6:57 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in June 6th at 2:06 p.m., going until the 7th at 12:57 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 30, the abstract trait of recognition of feelings in the emotional center, with its pressure of desire for a specific experience. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 41, the trait of decrease and contraction in the root center. That's a gate of fantasy. Together, they create the channel of recognition, a design of focused energy. This is the process and pressure of moving from fantasizing about all the experiences that you'd like to have to focusing that down to the one that you're really yearning for. Ideally, then, you want to leave it to the fates without expectation to be fulfilled. But for a lot of people, they create expectations around that experience they're yearning for. Now, we do have, again, one short-term channel coming in, but it's only for about 9 hours within this cycle. It's going to have a bigger impact in the next. It's coming in June 7th at 9:08 a.m., going until the 11th at 5:57 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 7th at 3:08 a.m., going until the 11th at 11:57 p.m. We have Mercury moving into gate 39, the individual trait of the provocateur in the root center. This is the trait that likes to tease. So it brings the pressure to provoke the spirit and the passion of the other. It's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 55, the trait of spirit and abundance in the emotional center that we looked at. Together, they create the individual channel of emoting, a design of moodiness. That pretty much says it all. It's going to bring a moodiness and the pressure to find your spirit and passion and to gain an awareness of who and what fills your cup, so to speak, and who or what doesn't. Remember, for any of these traits in the weather forecast, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You can learn from it. But whether there's anything for you to actually do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. All right, that brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course at margogfraser.com/human-design. All right, well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.